everyone. On behalf of the Massy Learning Institute, we warmly welcome you all and thank you for taking time to join us today. I am Audra Mitchell, Vice President, Group Learning and Development and General Manager of the Massy Learning Institute, and I have the privilege of being your host for today's session entitled Navigating the Metaverse. Those of you joining us for the first time, great having you. And to our webinar regulars, we thank you for your continued attendance at these sessions. So, what exactly is this new internet experience called the Metaverse? Is it a new fad? How will it change our lives? Will it impact businesses and how we work, how we socialize? Should I even care? And why are companies such as Facebook, Epic Games, Microsoft, Niantic, to name a few, are deciding to pour millions of dollars into this new technology? Is this the way of the future? Is the way of the future to take our businesses and lives meta? Well, to help us answer this and other questions you may have is our presenter, Mr. Christopher Derrell. But before I introduce him, I'd like to cover a few quick housekeeping items. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be available on MLI's YouTube channel. So we encourage you to revisit the content yourself and share with your colleagues and friends. We also invite your comments and questions. So during the session, please type them in our Q&A box and we'll get to them after the presentation. Now, without further ado, let me welcome and introduce our presenter, Mr. Christopher Derrell. So Christopher is an award-winning software developer who in his role manages UX, architecture and development to create practical and aesthetic websites. These websites have spanned across multiple industries, including banking, hotels and engineering from Barbados to Rome, while being recognized globally as being leaders in technological innovation. He has over 8 years of experience in software development and holds a Bachelor of Science honors in computer science and economics from the University of the West Indies, Mona. He leads a team of well developers at Adtelligent and also co-leads Youth Can Do It, a social enterprise teaching youth aged 7 to 25 the power of data and code, while working on their mindset of becoming creators, not just consumers. And he is also a Metaverse blogger. And we'll encourage you afterwards, to find his blogs and so you'll learn some more about it. So Chris, we welcome you and thank you for joining us today. And we are really looking forward to your presentation. Over to you.
Thank you, Audra. And thank you everyone who is able to join. I'm looking forward to sharing with you just a brief introduction to the Metaverse to get your minds going. So we can ask the question, what is it? And how is it that we can actually make the most of it? So I want to say good morning to everyone who joined today. I know we have persons from across the Caribbean and Latin America. And so I really am honored to have the opportunity to share with you a little bit about the Metaverse. Now, the concept of the Metaverse really needs navigating. That's the reason why this slide is titled Navigating the Metaverse, because there are different definitions that are floating around. And so that we can have a good understanding, so that we won't be misled, it's going to be an exciting delve today over the next couple minutes into what the Metaverse is and what it is that we can actually use it for. I know some of you want the quick notes, the summary from the start. So let me just give you a breakdown of what we'll be looking at today. The first thing is that we'll be looking at what is the Metaverse? A seemingly simple question, but not as simple as you think. How is it being used? One of the other things we'll be looking at is protection and safety in the Metaverse. And you might think to yourself, why is that so necessary right now? I mean, isn't the Metaverse only a couple months old? We're going to dig into that as well. And then lastly, we're going to break it down and look at regional opportunities that we have throughout this entire hemisphere, actually, to really make the most use of this Metaverse. But first, What is the metaverse? Well, let's start with the word itself, because the concept of the metaverse is quite old, older than you may even think. The metaverse actually came about, the first time it was recorded in use was in 1992, 30 years ago, in a book written by Neil Stephenson called Snow Crash. And Snow Crash was a book about a dystopian future, and he created this metaverse in his book, which was an escape from reality. Now, the metaverse today, 30 years later, isn't so different from when he originally put it. And the word itself is broken down into two parts. So you have meta, which is a Greek word meaning beyond or after. And you have verse, which is from our English word universe, and really is speaking to a place beyond the universe or after the universe. So the metaverse as a concept is a place where you will now have opportunities to do things you would not be able to do in a physical reality, in a virtual reality, right? So that's where the meta and the verse come in. Now, this is a concept that has been made very popular last year. And that's not because it was created last year, as we just discussed, but because Facebook had their parent company rebrand to Meta or Meta Platforms. And in this case, it's not metaverse, the term following Meta. It's actually Facebook following the metaverse. And they decided to make that big change because they believe that the metaverse is going to be impactful on every person on the earth. In fact, their CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, speaks about it many times in the press release, that the metaverse is going to be the way of interacting going forward. But it's not just Meta. Microsoft also has been working on virtual reality for many years. They introduced their HoloLens almost a decade ago for industrial use, where persons could build cars and see everything come up in front of them so that they know how to build the car correctly. But they've also been looking at more virtual reality and mixed reality items that are closer to the metaverse, as we're also going to look at later. The only person who hasn't fully caught the bandwagon is Apple, because Apple is now catching up, and there are rumors that Apple is going to be jumping into the metaverse as well with their own virtual reality headset. But this is something that the big companies are taking very seriously. We have Meta, we have Microsoft, even Netflix has some real estate in the metaverse. And so it's something that we're also going to make sure we in the region understand, so that we will know how we can capture these opportunities as well. Now, the key components of a metaverse. Like I said, there are many questions and definitions about the metaverse going around the internet right now. In fact, if you go into a conversation with someone about the metaverse today, the first question you have to answer is there one metaverse or are there multiple metaverses? Now, regardless of the answer to that, and there are still differing opinions, the thing that makes a metaverse is these four components that we're going to discuss right now. The first thing that a metaverse has to be is a shared space. That's very, very important. Because anytime you are entering a virtual reality and you have the ability to interact with others, speak to other persons, and other persons can join at their own free will, you're on your way to becoming a metaverse. What that means is, what is not a metaverse are those single player games that you may have played in the past. Whether it was Grand Theft Auto or any older games where you were the only person in it. Farmville is not a metaverse, right? This is not something that you alone are playing. So it's a shared space where persons can join at will. The second thing that's important to it being a metaverse, besides the shared space, is that there's an immersive component to it. Now, when we say immersive, we mean that you have to have the ability to be fully immersed with your senses in this digital environment. And currently, based on the technology we have today in 2022, that's most commonly done through a VR headset. Now, as technology advances, there are going to be other ways to be immersed in a metaverse. But right now, VR headsets like the Oculus from Meta are one of the main ways that you can get into the metaverse. Now, you'll notice the wording in this second point is very careful. There needs to be an immersive component, but the metaverse itself isn't only accessible through VR headsets. A proper metaverse allows you to access it through your phone or through your laptop as well, so that as many persons can access it as possible. But what's important is that there is an immersive component. If you did want to, and you want to go out and buy a headset, you should be able to join on as well. The third thing about the metaverse is that the environment must be interactive. You must be able to go up to things and interact with them, whether that's other persons or videos playing on the wall, whether that's images that you want to go up and look at in a virtual art gallery. The metaverse has to have an interactive component with the environment, just like we can today. And then the last thing is that you need to have a digital representation of yourself. And it's something that we call an avatar right now, which is a digital representation of you. Now, that doesn't mean it has to look like you. It doesn't necessarily mean that if you're short, then your avatar must be short as well. But there should be a representation of you that others can interface with when you are in the metaverse. These seem very simple, but they're all very important to defining what is not a metaverse. Because there are games that have been created in the past. There are applications like Zoom that exist, which will have one or two of these components, but they don't have all. And so that's one way you can distinguish what is a metaverse from what is not. Now, the metaverse is not a new concept. So let's look a little bit at how companies have been using the metaverse. One of the big applications that I have seen online is job fairs. So this is a picture from a job fair that happened in Silicon Valley earlier this year, where there were about 200 attendees and there were 30 companies there. And this reporter actually went in to just experience the metaverse, as most people do, to see it for the first time, to see, is this thing a gimmick? Is this just an escape from reality? Or is there any actual usage to it? And so she was in this metaverse for about 3 hours, and she said it took a while for her to get used to it. But one of the things she appreciated was going up to a company's booth, speaking to one of the representatives live, and then if she wanted to watch the video about the company, she could play it from behind them in the booth. So she got that experience of going to the company's job fair without actually having to get up and go. And that's very important if you cannot get up and go. And so this was one of the benefits of that usage of the metaverse, an interactive job fair. We also have the concept of shopping malls. Now in your head, you're like, why would a company who's already investing in physical real estate go into virtual real estate that they have to pay for and put up a mall? That's a great question. The problem that happens is when multiple companies are going into the metaverse, like Heineken, for example, is in the metaverse, other companies are finding that in order to compete, they need to own their own brand in that space as well. And so there's a part of it that is fear of missing out, where companies want to make sure that they're competing on all fronts. But there's also a part of it of protecting the brand, because they do want to make sure that the brand is represented well. And so, for example, the image I have here is from H&M, where they have their digital metaverse, and you can see it's decked out extravagantly. Like it looks like a massive store, a mega store. And that takes time to build. But what it does is it sets them apart from a smaller store, just as H&M would want to be represented in real life. They want to be the biggest and the best. And so they make that investment in designing this virtual space for their customers. Now, that part about their customers is important because their customers are in the metaverse. And that's one of the biggest drivers for persons building these properties or investing real estate in the metaverse. They're realizing that just like they put ads on Instagram because their customers are on Instagram, or they put up a billboard on the road because they know that their customers are driving past that billboard, this is another way to reach their audience. Their customers are growing and are continuing to be in this digital space. And so they make the investment to ensure that they are in front of their customers at all time. And it's not just H&M. Adidas has done a virtual shoe showcase where they have their shoes showing up in the metaverse, and you can spin around the shoe, see how the entire shoe looks, rather than just looking at a picture of a shoe on a website. Nike has also done it, Louis Vuitton, and a couple other brands like Heineken have also put their presence in the metaverse. Right? But it's not just companies. Organizations are doing it as well. Organizations are using the metaverse for live conferences. Now, if you're like me, you have been to at least one Zoom conference in the last 3 years of this pandemic. And the first one was exciting. You're like, wow, I can send messages, I can raise my hand. Man, this is great. But over time, persons get zoomed out. Like, you are tired of joining another Zoom webinar. And there are many reasons for it. But one of them is that the way that Zoom's interaction works, or any online video conferencing, whether it's Teams or WebEx, is you're pretty much passing around a talking stick. And so you wait for somebody else to speak, and then you can speak. So why companies are using the metaverse instead as an alternative to this is because in these live conferences, you may have a couple key speakers and many persons in the audience, but multiple conversations can go on at the same time. How that works is persons may be in different parts of the room, and the audio will be louder or quieter depending on where you are in the room. That gives the ability to have multiple conversations that don't overlap. There's no awkward Zoom pause where you're saying, no, you go, I'll mute. None of that again. You have this interaction where persons are speaking live in their own zones of the room, and they're able to have full interactions. And so live conferences are another way that companies are doing this. Now, this image on the screen is actually from my organization, Youth Can Do IT. And we are hosting a live conference tomorrow in celebration of International Girls in ICT Day. And that conference is in the metaverse. We have 130 persons signed up from across the world, and we have speakers that are going to be joining us on the day. And so this image is actually a selfie we took of some of the speakers who designed their own avatars on the left, as well as the organizing team, as we were doing a walkthrough of how they would actually be able to present tomorrow on the day. And so this is one free way that persons can get their first taste of the metaverse, because anyone can join. Another way that organizations are using it is through live conferences and classes. Now, this is actually a school in Japan, and I found their story very interesting on how they're using the metaverse to teach students. So they have the classroom, and you can project your screen on the board, or you can write on the whiteboard, just like you would with a marker, and the students can watch it. But one of the ways that the designer of the room described it, he said one of the interesting things was that one of the days he was going down the hallway to put something up on a bulletin board so persons could see it. He was putting a YouTube video there so that persons could walk by and watch that video when they joined the metaverse. And he said another teacher was walking past behind him, and the teacher said, "Hi." And he said, "Hi." And that was it. And then the teacher went about his business. And he said why that stood out to him is there was no special purpose for this meeting. There was no send a Zoom link so we can say hi. This was another way of interacting where even casual conversations are now possible again, even if you're 5,000 miles apart, because you have a space where persons can move around, they can interact with the environment, they can walk past persons, and then go to where they're going, which is another room in that space. And so the metaverse is a new way of interacting with other persons and your environment that is really giving new opportunities to us in the region. Prime example, Barbados. Barbados opened an embassy in the metaverse. Great for PR, great for press, everybody loves it, but so what? What's the purpose of this metaverse? I think is a very important question that we should answer. And one of the things that it really shows is that Barbados was the first to do this in the metaverse. They chose a metaverse called Decentraland, and they're now paving the way for other countries to follow up and do the same. This is a place where persons can apply for consulate services. This is a place where persons can see Barbadian art. This is a place where they can interact with Bajans from wherever they are in the world. And one of the interesting things that Gabriel Abed, the ambassador of Barbados to the UAE, said is right now Barbados has 20 physical embassies around the world. 20. But remember, there are over 190 countries in the world. Now, instead of going to each country and investing and building up a new place and putting someone to represent there, We now have a place where persons can speak to a representative of the embassy or the consulate from wherever they are in the world and get services related to that embassy. This is one of the reasons that it's important, because it gives small countries an advantage. Remember, Barbados was the first to do this, in this decentralized metaverse. And Barbados is not one of the biggest countries in the world. And so it's another opportunity that we do have. Now, everything is not rosy. We do have safety and privacy issues in the metaverse, where the development companies or the persons building these metaverses out are saying to themselves, let's focus on functionality right now. Let's make sure that it's up and running, and when persons join, they have a good experience. But it's not old enough. The technology is not old enough or developed enough to focus on privacy and safety as well at the same time. And so that is a challenge that we currently have, where persons are being harassed, where persons are being affected when they join these metaverses without having a way to be protected very quickly. And the companies are trying to catch on quickly. Meta is adding new ways to protect yourself if you're being harassed online. But this is still an issue that we have across the different metaverses. Another thing is managing at scale. So you remember that nice feature where persons will only hear the persons next to them when they're speaking? Well, that works until the room that you're in gets too full. And so when you have 200 people or 400 people in the same room, then it's still going to be noisy no matter what. And it's going to be much harder than in real life to just move away to go to another location because of that issue of the number of persons in a space. Another issue with managing at scale right now is that the more people in a room, the slower this experience gets, because these are running on servers. The third big challenge that we have is getting in and getting around, and that speaks to persons being able to literally navigate the metaverse. When persons first join, it's usually a very foreign experience. And so the challenge we have right now is also about educating persons on using the metaverse effectively. But without challenges, there would be no opportunities. So let's look at where we're heading and then some of the opportunities we have. Right now, investors and companies are investing both time and money in the metaverse. Time to find the right properties and build out their virtual representation. Money, meaning that they're actually buying plots of land in the metaverse or setting up servers with their own metaverses. In fact, there's a company in the US who has the record right now for the most money spent in the metaverse, where they spent $4.5 million US on property and land in the metaverse. So this is something that persons are investing in. Even Snoop Dogg is investing in the metaverse. The second thing is that the public is still shaping its opinion, right? So we're still in the place where on the technology adoption curve, early adopters and innovators are using the software. They are at the cusp of their development. So they're now getting used to the software, but we haven't reached the place where the majority of persons have access to a metaverse or are interested in even going on the metaverse. And by that statistic, it means that only 15% of persons are interested or using the metaverse currently, which means that 85% of you on the call may not have ever heard of the metaverse, may not have ever interacted with one, or may not have any interest in using one right now. The third thing, though, is that we have an opportunity to shape how it is used. And that's one of the points that I'm very, very excited about. So let's just look at 4 opportunities we have in our region, right? I was on a webinar previously with a security group, and we were discussing all of the issues with the metaverse. And if you know Bajans, we have a very good way of finding the flaw in any plan. I think is a gift given by God. But we got to the point where we were saying, you know, this is not like there's a lot of issues with the security of the system. And then I asked the question, okay, so why can't we be the persons to shape that policy? And the truth is there's no good answer. There was no good answer, and there still is not. Because if we have the ability to shape the first metaverse in the world, metaverse embassy in the world, sorry, then we definitely have the ability to shape the policies about how it should be used. And so that's one big opportunity we have, coming up with the policies about how to use the metaverse safely. Another big one is software development of the metaverse. Right now, the Caribbean has software development talent. And in my position as a head of web development, I know the talent exists, especially here in Jamaica, but I know it's throughout the entire region. We have the ability to develop these metaverses ourselves. In fact, the metaverse I showed you for Youth Can Do IT was developed by one of our team, who is first year at university, and he's the one building out these rooms, learning, and the talent is right here. We didn't outsource any of that. Everything is right here. So we have an opportunity to jump into metaverse software development early. One of the things that I recognize as an opportunity for the region, and it may be unpopular opinion, but the truth is, right now, we are in this region very close to the US. We have at least 3 advantages, which is that we speak the same language. We're 1 flight away from Florida, and we're in the same time zone as the US. Not to mention right now, we have issues with India's right now battling COVID and recovering. And of course, Ukraine, the war in Ukraine is really taking a toll on their population, unfortunately so. But India and Ukraine were the 2 top outsourced development areas in the world for software development outside of Brazil. And so as the region, we do have an opportunity in light of all of this negative that is happening to really come out and show that we do have the talent to build this software out. The third is metaverse content creation in terms of writing blogs, writing articles, creating videos on this topic, because we do have the knowledge to do it. We're a very literate society in the Caribbean, and when we go to different countries, we excel. I know Colombia has talent like crazy as well, because we're also looking at finding developers in Colombia. So we know that we have the ability and the knowledge to actually write on metaverse content as well. So let's do it. And then the last thing is landscaping consultation. So I have this image of the beach on the left-hand side here, and somebody with his work box. And I thought that it was very apt, because one of the questions I had been asked before is, what's to stop somebody from doing a mapping of the entire Barbados and then selling virtual land in the entire Barbados? There's absolutely nothing to stop that. Someone could actually do the development of a virtual version of Barbados, and then you can sell the different parts. You can buy virtual property in Barbados. And that's definitely an opportunity for us. But if we don't want to do the building, we can also be the consultants for persons overseas who want to do the building. We can be their direct experts when they want to build out a certain area in Kingston, Jamaica, in parts of St. Lucia, in Georgetown, Guyana, wherever they want to build, we would be able to develop this as a consultation arrangement with them. And these are just 4 opportunities, but there are many, because this is a burgeoning area. Now I could talk about this all day, but this is really where I wanted to leave it, because the goal of this presentation is not to give you a course on the metaverse. But my hope is that by the end of this, you would have an understanding of what the metaverse is, how it can be used positively, and how we can grow from it with our society. I've been asked, and this is my closing, I've been asked before, is the metaverse something that is only going to be used for people to escape from reality? Is this a place where people will create virtual versions of themselves, where they create themselves as a man when they're a woman, or a child when they're an adult, or predators can use it? And the truth is, yes, there will be persons that use it like that. But the metaverse is a tool. And the tool really depends on whose hands it's in. If you think about a scalpel that a doctor has, a scalpel is a knife. In the hands of a murderer, it can be used to take a life, but in the hands of a doctor, it can be used to save a life. The same thing goes for the metaverse. The metaverse is a tool that has to be used and wielded correctly. So it's a topic that I'm very interested in, and I hope that you guys have questions, because we do have some time to tackle them. But if you do want more information, you can head over to my blog, inthemeta.space, to get more information about the metaverse.
So, Chris, thank you so much. So we heard about job fairs, conferences, retail stores, and embassies in the metaverse, and the possibilities seem endless. So I know, and I'm sure that you have lots of questions for Christopher. So I'm now going to hand you over to Mrs. Renee Bonnet, who will be moderating our Q&A segment of this webinar. Renee?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Audra. Thank you so much, Christopher, for an enlightening presentation. So our first question this morning is coming from an anonymous person. How does the metaverse correlate with reality?
That's a very wide question. How does the metaverse correlate with reality? So again, it goes back to the metaverse being a tool. If you want to ensure that the metaverse correlates with reality, it depends on the person designing it. So let me take it from the real estate point of view and then the commerce point of view. Real estate wise, the metaverse can be a direct mapping of the places around you. Just like you would go to the revenue authority or the bank, you can imagine having a virtual way of doing that and having a way to interact with reps from the bank, all in the metaverse. You can check this out now because JP Morgan Chase in the US has already set up their metaverse lounge where persons can access banking services just as they would in reality through the metaverse. In terms of commerce, one of the goals of the metaverse is that persons would be able to trade in the metaverse. And some of them is possible already. Some of the biggest metaverses they allow you to do commerce using cryptocurrency. So you have Decentraland, you have the Sandbox, where you can actually purchase items using cryptocurrency. And as you're aware, cryptocurrency can be converted from cash into virtual or cryptocurrency. So it means that anything you earn in these metaverses can then be converted back into cash, US dollars. I hope that tackled it, but those are two areas that you can see the connection between reality and the metaverse.
All right, thank you so much, Christopher. And this is a good follow-on question. Our next question here. How does payment in the malls work? Is it actual shopping or is it just viewing?
Good question. So the first thing to answer is yes, there is payment in the malls. The malls allow you to check out or purchase items. How it happens depends on the metaverse you're in or how the persons are managing payment. Some of them use cryptocurrency. So you can see an Adidas shoe that you like, you see a specific design on your Nike Air Jordans, and then you purchase using cryptocurrency. Some of the purchases are not physical shoes. One of the things you can also purchase in the malls are NFT, non-fungible tokens, which are also transacted using cryptocurrency. You can also actually purchase physical items by clicking on a link in the metaverse and then going to the website of that company and purchasing on the website. So what happens is just like you would take a link from Amazon or go to a new product page on Amazon, when you're walking around in the metaverse and you open a new tab, you'd have the ability to do the purchase there and then head back into the metaverse, which is a very exciting prospect. But that's a whole other talk that I have to be re-invited for.
No problem at all, Christopher. Thank you. Moving on nicely to our next question. Now, this person is asking, how can we join your metaverse session?
Sure. We can, well, it would be up to MLI, but we have a link that you can register on, and you will get the link to the event, which starts tomorrow at 12:30 GMT -5. So for persons in Jamaica and Colombia, it's 12:30 and then 1:30 Beijing, Trini time, Guyana time.
Okay, no problem. So we'd be happy to share it once you share it with us. How can an individual access the metaverse, create an avatar, purchase real estate, etc., etc.?
Great question. So the first thing that you need to identify is what is your goal with doing all of that. If your goal is to meet other persons, then the metaverse that you join would be different from if your goal is only to own real estate and then at some point resell that real estate later on. And figuring out your goal will also help you choose which metaverse you go into. I'll give you an example. If you want to have real estate, meet friends, speak to other persons, then Facebook has a metaverse called Horizon Venues or Horizon Worlds, where you can actually go in, design your world, design your avatar, and meet other persons. But if it is to purchase an investment property that you want to resell, that would not be the best place to do it because you can't really sell it. Whereas there's Decentraland, or the Sandbox, which that is their sole purpose. Buy property, own that property as a non-fungible token, which means it's yours forever. And then when you're ready to sell it, you can sell it at the price that you want. And you have the same process of creating your avatar. And you have the same process of purchasing using cryptocurrency, but there are different platforms that are set for that. So just as an aside, Barbados's embassy is in Decentraland. They chose that one. It's one of the main metaverses in the world right now.
All right, thank you so much. Ralph is asking, so I'm guessing that you would be able to have virtual tourism sometime going forward with the metaverse. Any idea if payment for services would be in the cryptocurrency?
More than likely, yes, but it will depend on the platform that you use. So if you want to do virtual tourism, like a virtual Barbados or a virtual Trinidad, and you have people that want to go to Point Fortin or want to go to one of the nice beaches and see a bacon shark, but you want to do it on Decentraland because you want the reach, then you would be limited to cryptocurrency, yes. However, if you design your own metaverse and you decide to host it yourself, which is very possible because we have the talent to do it, then you would control whether it's payment directly through cryptocurrency or actually using a credit card or a debit card online to purchase. And so say somebody wanted to buy a virtual flag and they go to the country and they're like, oh, I love this beach. I want a picture of this beach. And you know somebody who does paintings of the beach. Then you can have them purchase the painting of the beach, have it emailed to them or physically mailed to them using cash by them just clicking a link in that metaverse.
Okay, thank you. We have a very interesting question coming up next. Does the impact of the metaverse affect job security? For example, if real estate is moved to the metaverse, then do you no longer need real estate agents on the ground? And similarly for grocery stores and many other companies.
The shape of jobs will change for sure. That is something that we have been seeing. It's not new to the metaverse at all. It has been changing for at least the last 20 years. It's been changing in manufacturing. Many of the things that were done in car plants over the last 50 years have now moved into more automated robotics because that works out better long-term for scale. So the shape of jobs will definitely change over time. Based on those two examples, just examples that we have right now, Amazon has created an Amazon Go supermarket where you can go in, you can pick up the item. They know that you've picked up the sandwich and the juice. And when you walk out, they charge your card immediately. There are no human beings in the store. It's a fully autonomous supermarket, and that's in reality. That's not even in the metaverses yet. So some of these jobs are definitely changing. What I would say though is that real estate agents in reality need to also be able to transfer their skills. And this comes through more education, I should say, because those skills are transferable to something like the metaverse. The same way you would say prime real estate in Barbados is here in Apes Hill, then you can be able to do the same in the metaverse. It might not seem like a one-to-one transition, but the skill set of knowing how to do something can be transferred to a digital or a technology-based system like the metaverse. Are they at risk? I would say they are going to change for sure. And that's why many countries are investing so heavily in STEM, because they know that they want to be ahead of the curve when all of this changes over. They want to have the programmers or the mathematicians who can do the algorithms behind how these things work. And that's why, I mean, in our region, we do the same.
All right, thank you so much for that. I find that very, very interesting. Okay, our next two questions, I think I'm going to merge them so that you can answer in one go. Do you have to purchase the space in the metaverse, or is it that the space can be leased or rented? And then the next question, if I purchase a parcel of land in the metaverse, would I be purchasing it in reality as well?
Ooh, very nice. And these are, oh yeah, cool. So the first one, that's a great question as well. In terms of leasing, that one is going to depend on the metaverse, but I will say that most metaverses sell you completely. And that's because of the technology that they're using to sell it to you. What they are giving you is a contract of ownership. That's just how some of the cryptocurrency works. And so in order for you to get that property, it means that once you've paid, the contract is tied to your ID or your crypto wallet. And that means that no one else on the internet can claim that I have the property that Audra owns because it has Audra's ID. And it's actually more of a security mechanism. There's no way that I can pretend or steal Audra's ID and say this is me, because based on the blockchain, there are hundreds of thousands of other computers that would say, no, Chris, we already say that this property belongs to Audra's ID. This is not your land. So most metaverses would sell you the property, and then it's tied to your ID for security reasons. I'm sure there are persons who would lease, and I could see how leasing would work. Like you rent an online property. I'm sure there's a business for that, but most of the ones I've seen are purchase only, like you own it. In terms of reality, boy, that's a touchy question. I'll tell you why. I remember I was watching a video about this purchasing of real estate, and persons were saying, you know, why is it that property in the metaverse on a hill is expensive? That doesn't make any sense, because you have real property in the world and it's expensive because of its scarcity. If you want the one on the hill, then you know you have to pay a high price because it's so far to get to, or it's, you know, it's scarce. But if I can teleport between two locations, why is it that this property costs more than the one next to it, or the one at the bottom of the virtual hill? And why does the property even cost this when the developers could decide the real estate is now infinite, or the virtual real estate is now bigger, making my property costs less valuable? And so it's an ongoing discussion, like, why is it that we're mapping reality directly into the metaverse? I will say that there's no rule saying that what you purchase in the metaverse is connected to anything in reality. That's pretty much it, except the currency itself that you're using to purchase it, because that's cryptocurrency, which can be used either in reality or in the metaverse. But it is still growing, because there is a joke that says that purchasing property in the metaverse, which can, of course, you can sell it back at a premium. As the land becomes more scarce in the metaverse, you can sell it back higher than you purchased it, just like in reality. But persons are saying purchasing in the metaverse is one of the only ways millennials can afford property right now. That's why it touched a bone, because it is an ongoing thought that this is another type of investment that younger persons can do that will pay off in reality in the longer term. I hope that answered it.
Yes, I'm sure the person was able to get their answer. So thank you so much. Moving on to the next one. So you speak about the metaverse and you speak about it in the plural. So how many metaverses are there? Is there like a list somewhere?
Right, let me just make a note of my next blog post, list of metaverses. There are lists across the internet. One of the things is that because it's such a newly covered topic because of Facebook's recreation of their name, you're not going to find all the lists in one central location like Wikipedia would have a list of countries in the world. You'll have to go between Forbes, CNN, and find the list there. There's still two topics of whether there's one metaverse or multiple. Right now, there are multiple. That is the fact. There are multiple metaverses, so each of them is its own metaverse. However, there is a definition of the metaverse that's floating around the internet, which says that all of them at some point will have to be interconnected. That's not the case right now, but that is one way persons describe the metaverse, to your question, as one interconnected universe of all the metaverses. That doesn't exist as yet, but that is one of the ways that persons are looking at how the metaverse could be in the future.
Okay, great. Looking forward to reading that blog post that you will put out. Moving on nicely to our next question. Okay, so do I have to be a techie to be in the metaverse? And you mentioned the VR headset. What is a VR headset?
Cool. Love those questions. No, first question, definitely not. You do not have to be techie to be in the metaverse. In fact, many of the persons we have for our conference tomorrow are not techie. We have the Minister of Science Technology of Jamaica. She's going to be joining tomorrow. We have presenters that are used to regular TV media who are going to be doing the live emceeing tomorrow. Never touched an Oculus headset, never touched a VR headset before. But as soon as they put it on, they were like, oh, I see this. This makes sense. I mean, we had to take it off of them because it's like they didn't want to take it off. So you don't have to be techie at all. And I really do believe this. And so when I do send out the link, I invite you to join us tomorrow to see how to use it. But what I've been seeing is every time we do a walkthrough with persons, some people just get it immediately. Some people figure out how to move around, how to listen to presenters, how to unmute, and it becomes like a natural experience for them. A VR headset it looks like this, and I use this as an example because most of them look like this. I hope you can see it. And it has a couple key components. The camera. So you have the lens where your eyes can go, even if you wear glasses, your eyes can go here. This blurring is not working for me right now, but you have that. And then you strap it over your head and you can go into the metaverse. How you control yourself is you're given 2 controllers where you can interact with things around you. That adds to the interactive environment of the metaverse itself. There are quite a few on the market, but this one from Facebook is called the Meta Quest or the Oculus Quest. It's very nice. It doesn't need to be connected to any computer to work. And yeah, I definitely recommend it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The questions are pouring in. Are there any aspects of law enforcement utilizing the metaverse? Could we be moving to virtual prisons and courts?
So in terms of law enforcement, that's one of the areas I haven't seen any articles in. I've seen everything from the schools that I've shown you to, I've even seen VR Church. There's a company called VR Church where persons are building church metaverses, and it's working for persons in their community who are like disabled, who can't actually come to church. They're getting the experience of going to church again. I thought that was cool. I have not seen law enforcement in the metaverse at all, like 0 times. Doesn't mean we can't do it, but I haven't seen it at all. That one, so this is really going to depend on the imagination of the developers. That one may be ineffective, because if I can come out of prison by taking off my headset, then I'm coming out of prison. That one, I'd have to see that done first, but I don't see how that would be effective as yet. What I do see is a possibility that prisons that are physical may give prisoners VR headsets at some point to interact with loved ones when conjugal visits or whatever are not available. That I do see.
All right. A great follow-on question here we have. You mentioned security as a big concern currently. What can non-technical persons do to safeguard themselves from cyber attacks?
Great question. That is, so there are 2 parts to it. Just like when you're using the internet, you have the security of the device that you're using, because not all the responsibility of security is on you. That should never be the case. So your laptop may have an antivirus, it may have a malware that says, hey, what you just downloaded is not what it says it is. But the only way that you can do the second part of protecting yourself is to get educated about the software that you're using. One thing you can do is something as simple as reading the reviews. Reviews of any application that you're going to be using, so that you're knowledgeable of what you could be at risk of when you join that specific metaverse. One other thing that we could do, and please forgive me because I know many of you are like, what? You can read the terms of service. Yes, definitely. That thing that we check off when we sign up for software, saying we read it, that usually has a lot of things in it that can actually guide you on how to best use the software for yourself and for your security. But some of that has to go back to the developers of the software as well.
Can all VR headsets work with the metaverse, and how much would a set like that cost?
Not all VR headsets will work with the metaverse. The majority of them are being designed to do so. This one, so there are multiple manufacturers. You have HTC. They do one called the Vive. You have Steam. Steam has one as well. They have different purposes. Some of them are designed for persons who want to do gaming. This one is less gaming, more interaction. And the prices, this one is the most affordable one I believe I've seen, which is, it starts at $299 on Amazon, and then it goes up from there. So you have $299 and you have some that are way up, like $899. But that's one way you can get in. But like I did mention, the metaverse isn't only accessible through these headsets. You can access it through your phone, you can access it through your laptop, and there are headsets called Google Cardboard, where you can use your phone as the display and put that in the front of the headset, and then you put that on. And so because you're not paying for a processor or memory like another headset, those are much more affordable than a full VR headset. I don't have a price point, but they're less than $200. Like way less, maybe in the $60, $70 range. More examples. I personally don't have any other examples from the Caribbean, but I'm sure we're not the only persons doing it. I've seen other companies do metaverse events. So there was one here in Jamaica in January, but it was less of an immersive experience, more of a digital experience. I can check on that and find out and send to Renee and Audra if that's necessary.
Okay, great. So I'll just ask this last question before we hand back over to Audra. Can you recommend any articles or books for further reading on the metaverse?
Definitely. So one of the things that you should be looking for if you want to learn more about the metaverse is someone who is unbiased. I know it's hard to find, especially in media today, but you want to find someone who's covering it from the point of view of opportunity and challenges, rather than someone who's swayed to either of the sides. There is a great reporter, a lady named Kathy Hackle from Forbes. Let me send her how her name is spelled here. She writes well on the metaverse. She covers all aspects of it and applications. So if you do want to learn more, you can read her posts on Forbes. There are very few persons that are as consistent as she is. She's been writing about it for years. But you can also follow in the meta space because I will be writing on it as well.
All right, thank you so much, Christopher. I hand back over now to you, Audra.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Renee, and thank you to our attendees for your amazing questions. So Christopher, thank you, thank you, thank you. On behalf of all of us here today, thank you for sharing your time and helping to demystify the metaverse, and as well as allowing us to better understand both the risks and the opportunities it brings. And to your audience, we encourage you to continue doing your reading and your learning about it because it is here to stay. And Christopher, we look forward to having you back here with us at another time, again, sharing your expertise and knowledge. I know all of us certainly learned a lot from just in this hour. To you, our attendees, thank you for being a part of this experience, and we look forward to hosting you at our other upcoming workshops and sessions. And remember to keep safe, keep learning, keep growing, and most importantly, keep leveling up.